Hi friends, this is a Qlab tutorial overview. It'll be an interface orientation and basic tools orientation within Qlab. Qlab 4. I have it in 4.6.12, but it'll be very similar in 4.7. So that'll be the primary goal of this activity. In order to facilitate that, you will receive a copy of this practice project sheet, which includes a description, like a narrative of what happens in our play that is all imaginary, and then also a cue sheet that identifies what those cue points are, what their numbers are, and then what happens in each cue. Okay, some cues don't have a separate number, so pre-show song 1 should run straight into pre-show song 2 into 3. You don't need a separate cue to start each of those pre-show songs. So the next active cue would be this fade out, right? Another example is this gunshot, which is a backup, right? So we are assuming in our imaginary play that they're using a starter crystal on stage, but we need a hotkey trigger backup. So that's another tool that Qlab has available to you that I'll talk to you about in a moment. So familiarize yourself with this project outline. And then if you go through over here, you'll see all of this audio that you've found in a zip file that you downloaded from Canvas. And these are your basic pieces of content that you'll need. There are some random songs. Those will be your pre-show songs. I'm using Vibe Vendetta as the transition music. So that will be that piece. And then the rest of it is all kind of random songs that various students have submitted to me in the past as part of this project. We also have a couple of sound effects, like our tea kettle sound, our background noise, our ambiance, the heavy rain, the fresh morning. So those are also in this folder for you. So you should not need any additional audio files in order to execute the sequence of this project. Okay, so my first step would be to take all of these files with random whatevers that are happening and number them into an order and or label them into an order that I can find them when I need them. So I'm gonna call this, instead of this long title, I'm gonna just rename it to Rain, and Rain happens in Q3. So I'm gonna put a little 3 in front of it, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and do all of that, and then I will join you once that is all set. All right, so I've organized my files now, which is great. I'll be using the same transition music piece again for the second transition. So I'll just come back to that same file, but that now I at least have a plan, a basic organization to my files. So the next thing I'm gonna do is create a new workspace. So you'll open Qlab, you will say new workspace, and it will now open up a blank cue list for you. In our tradition of file management, this is where I would save this file. So I would say save as. I would find a place that I want to save it, which in this case is in the desktop, blah, 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 somewhere in my Qlab assignment folder. Okay. And this is Lily pretend play Qlab project. Okay. So now I have that show file someplace, right? My next task is going to be to bring in the pre-show content, okay? So I'm going to just start at the beginning of my cue list and start building the project, okay? So I'm going to bring in my 3 pre-show songs that I've chosen, okay? So random songs number 1, 2, 3. I'm going to just drag and drop them from the folder where they sit on my desktop into Qlab. Qlab is a referencing software. It's pointing to these files. So while I'm dragging them in, they're not actually imported. This is not iTunes. It's not putting them someplace. If I were to take this file and move it into another folder, Qlab would lose track of it and it would get a red X over here. So that's something just to be aware of. You'll notice once I did that, right, it created 3 cues in our cue list. It also automatically numbered them, which I do not need that to happen, right? Because I'm going to give them their cue numbers based on my cue sheet over here, not based on random order that they came flying into Qlab, okay? And this is especially going to be a thing if you are organizing a whole bunch of files and layering stuff in Qlab, which is something you can do. You can do a lot of the kinds of editing work that you did in the DAW in Qlab itself. So what I'm going to do first is change a couple settings. I'm going to have it not number things for me anymore. Settings are in this little sunshine. It used to be a gear shaped icon, but now it looks more like the sunshine icon. If you come in here, there are a bajillion tiny settings that you can adjust. The one I care about right now is this auto number new cues, right? We're going to disable that, okay? So we don't want that to happen, right? We want to number these cues ourselves. There are a bunch of other tabs that you can take a look at in your free time. We will be primarily using this audio and general, but there are other places down here that will come into play for us, especially as we start to do more complex work in Qlab. But for today, mostly general and audio is what we're dealing with. Now that I've set that so it won't create those titles, I can also come up here into the tools and I can have it delete numbers of selected cues, right? So if I hold shift and I select all of the cues that I have so far, I can just come up to tools and have it delete those numbers. So now we're not confusing ourselves with cue numbers. Cue numbers should only be assigned to cues that are called by the stage manager or triggered by the board operator, so that it's easy to tell when you're going to get the next cue start, right? So there are many pieces of content. They are not all cued individually. So for pre-show music, we want a specific thing to happen, and that is we want the first song to start and then the second song to start when that one ends and then the third song to start when that one's over, okay? So we start here with this first one. If I hit the space bar, it should automatically start playing the song. I'm not hearing it in my headphones right now. I'm going to open this sidebar tab, okay, and this is like a little list thing. Come over to the active cue list, and we will see that it's playing, but I'm still not hearing it. And this is why. Output patch, it's sending it to my computer monitor, which turns out doesn't have any sort of listening output. So we're going to try this again. If I hit escape, it sends me back out to the nothing. And if I come up here, I can change my output patch to my headphones, which is actually also my microphone in this case. Quick sidebar, I'm going to go ahead and make that a default, right? Audio patch 1 should be the Samsung Go mic, and then this can be later. It doesn't actually matter. There is no sound output from my monitor. Okay, let's close that and make sure that these are all set to the Go mic, which is now the correct audio output. Okay, let's try again and see if I get anything in my ears. All right, I do. It comes through later. So there's some weird silence at the beginning of this song, like the first 7 seconds, there's no audio. That is not great for me. And you notice I came over here and I'm just like pausing and playing and scrubbing through inactive cues. That lets me sort of adjust my position without having to hit escape and start over again. There's like 7 seconds of silence, which is never what we want. We want the cue to start as soon as you hit go. And there are ways within Qlab to make that adjustment to the specific file. So if you come to time and loops, and this is kind of, we're going to go through the basic settings in our audio panel. So if you come to time and loops, you can actually visually see where the waveform starts, and you can grab this little guy and just adjust the start point to when there starts to be sound. And that is going to help us out with that problem. So now if I hit escape, it's actually going to start with the first chord of the song instead of a bunch of silence that I don't care for, okay? Basics is just where does this target, right? Where is it looking to that file? If you look through, you can see the whole structure that gets me to that file down here at the bottom. Triggers is things like hotkey triggers. We'll talk about that with the gun. Time and loops we just looked at. You can also have things loop. You can also shift the rate and preserve pitch and all kinds of other manipulation in terms of sound and speed within this time and loops panel. Then you have audio levels, and we're just going to leave everything at 0 for this particular project, although if things are too loud, you can pull them down in audio levels. Audio trim, same idea, except it's a master adjustment. And audio effects are a whole bunch of things that are either built into your computer or that you can apply as plugins. We're not there yet. So we're really most interested in right now in time and loops, audio levels, and your basics. Where's the file? Okay, so I'm gonna leave the time and loops. I'm gonna leave the audio levels panel open for right now. Okay, so I have my first cue, pre-show, great, it happens. I want, as soon as this song ends, for the next song to start. And the way that I set Qlab up to do that is over here in this little, it looks kind of like an anchor column, is either do not continue, auto continue, or auto follow. Do not continue means play the song, stop, do nothing, and wait for further instruction. Auto continue means play the song and the thing after it simultaneously. Auto follow means play the song until it ends, and when it ends, start the next song. That's what I want to have happen during pre-show. So I get the little picture of the anchor. If it says auto continue, I get the little 3 arrows, and it would start those 2 songs at the same time. Do not continue, I get nothing in this column. We want auto follow. We also want 1.2 to have an auto follow into 1.3, okay? So we will change that as well. So now I have my first song, my second song, my third song. If I start playing this song, it'll start happening, right? If I scrub through to the very end of this song, once it ends, then there's a whole bunch of other silence that I could cut out. Oh, geez. Then the next song starts, right? So that is basic game, right? You can scroll through to the end of that song, and when it ends, the next song should start, right? That's all what we want to have happen in this pre-show sequence, right? I don't want someone to have to like start each individual song while the audience is walking in. Once I've built those 3 cues, I'm going to select the 3 cues that are all part of pre-show. I'm going to put them in a group by clicking this group button, okay? We're going to name this group pre-show, right? We're going to call it group number 1, right? So that's cue number 1, okay? This group has different behavior components down here at the bottom. We are using start first child, which is the first file inside, and enter into group, okay? And this will basically jump to the next cue because this group is all set up to auto follow, okay? That's your pre-show setup. The next thing you'll need to do is create cue number 2, right? So that's cue number 1 is now done. Cue number 2 fades out this pre-show group. And it's important that it fades out the group and not an individual song, and that's because we could be ready to start the show at any moment, right? So we could be in the middle of song 1.2, we could be in the middle of song 1.3, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So usually you have enough pre-show music that it can go on longer than it would take the show to start, so that you don't have anybody sitting in silence waiting for a play to happen, but you want it to fade out wherever you are in the middle of whatever song you're in the middle of, okay? So what we'll do is create a fade cue. That's this button right here that looks kind of like a little fader. We click on that button, it creates a fade cue in our folder. You then need a target for a fade. Right now it is targeted at nothing. And to target a fade cue, you want to grab the thing and drag it over the cue. So I'm grabbing the pre-show from the group level, dragging it over the cue, and now it's targeting 1. And it says, I'm going to fade the pre-show. And you're like, cool, but it still has a little X on the side because it doesn't have fade parameters enabled, okay? So I'm fading pre-show out. I'm going to go to audio levels, right? And I'm going to just take this button, and you see it turns yellow, drag it all the way down to -infinity, and it's going to fade out that song, okay? Action is how long that fade out will take. So let's say we're in the middle of this song, and I'm going to just kind of jump to the middle. When I go to my fade pre-show button and I hit the space bar, in 3 seconds it fades out. You can decide if it should fade out in 3 seconds or 5 or 6 or whatever, right? You will notice it faded out, but the song is still playing silently. This is not great practice, right? Because if the song is still playing silently, it's using up your processor power to render that audio content. This is less of a thing with sound, right? Because sound isn't taking a huge amount of processor power to decompress an MP3 and render it. But when you get into video, this becomes a big problem in your life, okay? So to prevent this, continuing to play but silently, you want to click the stop target when done check mark. And that way, when you run your fade cue, and I'll just hit it again, it will also clear that from the memory of your computer. So it will fade it out and then it'll stop it so that nothing is running in the background underneath whatever other stuff you have going on. Okay. So it will now say, once you hit that stop target when done button, it says it's going to fade and stop pre-show. That's what we want. This is a called cue, so we want to give it our cue number based on our cue sheet. So that says now cue number 2, okay? So I fade out the pre-show. The reason that that's separate from the transition music, right, is the fact that this is a curtain speech. So we're fading out the pre-show music so someone can say, hi, hello, welcome to the play, right? Hi, hello, welcome to the play. We're doing the play. Thank you and enjoy the show, okay? At that point, we want transition music to start. And then we want rain to come in underneath the transition music. Welcome. Now we are sound designing. Okay. That's going to happen for a moment, right? And then once the actors are set on stage, that transition music will fade out and the rain will stay, but at a lower volume so that they can talk over it. Okay. So this is what we're doing now. This is our next cue we're building. So we want to come in, grab our transition music, which was that number 3 song, 3 transition, bring that in. And then I'm also going to bring in the rain. Okay. And I'm just dragging and dropping them into my Qlab workspace so that I have them to work with. Okay. So the transition music is going to start. It's going to start first. The rain is going to then come up underneath it. I'm going to actually select these two as a group and we'll use a different group mode for this purpose. Okay. So we're going to call this transition, if I can spell, and we'll number it number 3, cue number 3. No, please do, for real. Thank you. We're going to use a different group mode. We're going to use timeline. Okay. Timeline starts both things at the same time, but it also shows you visually what you're doing, right? This, again, is really useful for stuff like video, right? Where you're trying to match things up to go together. But it can be helpful in this situation as well. So the music is going to start first, then the rain, right? The rain maybe starts a few seconds later, 5 seconds later. You'll notice as I move things around in here, you're also able to see in this pre-wait column, right? It's going to wait, 4 seconds before it starts, and the audio and the group timeline is going to show that, right? So I'm going to have this guy start first, and then 4 seconds later, the rain is going to start. Let's just hear what that sounds like, right? I'm hearing music. I'm hearing music. Rain is coming up now. This is all very loud in my headphones. I don't know what you can hear. I don't know if this screen recorder is capturing it, but I am going to adjust some audio levels on these guys, right? So I'm going to pull down my musical level. Better. Great. And then I'm going to have my rain also down a little bit, maybe -7. Okay, great. I hit escape to get out of there. So pretty good, right? For beginning, right? So that gives me our situation with our first music starting, rain starting. Great. We now need a fade out. What happens in cue number 4? The transition music fades out, and then the rain ducks under the dialogue and continues through the scene. Okay, so that's 2 separate fades. One fade that will take the transition music completely out, and then the second fade is going to take the rain not all the way out, but down. So I'm going to have a group cue for this as well. I'm going to number it number 4. Inside, and this is going to be beginning of scene. And then inside of this, I'm putting 2 fade cues. I'm going to just do them. Because I had beginning of scene selected, it targeted that as the fade cue, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to target music and then rain with these 2 fade cues. This first fade cue for beginning of scene is actually going to fade out the music completely. So I just hit that all the way down at negative infinity and then stop target when done. So it's now going to fade and stop that music. The rain, instead of fading and stopping the rain, right, I'm actually going to just fade it down to like -14, right? So I can look at what it was. It was like -7. Now it's like -14. And that is an absolute fade. So it's taking it from what it was to a specific target level down here. Okay. I want both of these things to happen simultaneously. So I can just say start all children simultaneously, just like I did before. Again, that gives me this timeline where I can see the 2 things. Maybe I want this fade of the rain to go more slowly than the fade out, so I can drag it over in the timeline, or I can just adjust this action length. So let's say the rain fades down in 7 seconds. It's more subtle. So now I can come here, transition, cue go. I think I might actually bring the rain in sooner, but that's okay. So now the rain has that fade up already in it. And we're going to hit the space bar, right? The music's gone already. The rain is still fading down. I think the rain can go even lower. So I'm going to pull it all the way down to -20 so it's not distracting. I can run that cue again and it'll just fade it more. Better. Great. So now people can talk over it and it's not a thing. This rain cue is really, really long, right? If you look at the basics on it, it's like 30 minutes long. So there's plenty of rain to last a whole scene. If that was not the case, right? If it was not a 30-minute cue, then I might need to play with time and loops and make sure that it doesn't have a fade in and fade out at the end and that it loops continuously, right? So that the rain doesn't end before it's supposed to. But in this case, we're good. We have plenty of rain. I'm not concerned. So I'm just going to keep listening to this rain in the background while I build cue number 5, which is this transition from this rain scene to a morning scene. Okay. So I'm going to, again, use the same transition music because this is a fake show. I'm going to have that music fade up. I'm going to have the rain fade out, and then the morning sounds come in. And then once the scene is ready to start, I would fade out the transition music. Okay. And that would happen as Q6. So Q5 is going to fade up transition music. It's going to fade out the rain and fade in the morning sound. Okay. So I'm going to, again, make a group for this because a bunch of different things are happening inside this queue. Within this group, I know I need to bring in this music, right? And I want to grab it again just for clarity, right? I could copy and paste, but I'm just going to grab it again. Transition music. You'll notice I can drag things and there are different places where that little line goes. If the line is to the left further, it will land outside of the group. And if it's a little bit more inside, it'll land inside the group. This is the thing I want to have happen. I'm just going to zoom in on this so I can kind of see. I'm going to start here, basically. So I started a little bit after. You can do things like use integrated fade, right? Which would build a fade cue into the beginning of this piece, right? So then rather than creating a separate fade cue, right, I'm able to start the song by fading it up, right? I can kind of play with the shape of that fade if I care to. And so now, again, I can hit this little play button and hear how it fades up. There's rain going in the background, right? I'm going to use that integrated fade to have that music kind of fade up as opposed to fading it, starting it and fading it, right? So that is how I'm using integrated fades in our time and loops panel, right? I'm only keeping the first 23 seconds. They better move quick in this scene change. I don't want this to go on forever. Okay, so that's going to start. Great. And then after that starts, I want to fade out the rain. And again, it's accidentally targeting the wrong thing, but I'm going to come grab the rain and fade that. Nope, nope, don't move it, just target it. Grab the rain, I'm going to have that fade out, stop target when done. If I want to, I can come in here and I can say transition 2. And I can use that timeline mode again so that I can be like, okay, so music starts. Once it fades part of the way up, right, because I can see the shape of that fade, then I'm going to have this rain stop. I'm going to extend this fade a little bit longer so it takes a little longer to happen. And then I want to turn on these morning sounds. I want to fade in these morning sounds, right? So let me go find morning sounds. Let me drag that in here, right? Same idea. Here's morning sounds, okay? I'm going to take that and put an integrated fade on that as well. So how many seconds? How many seconds? How many seconds? And kind of fade that up. Oof. This is a long, let's see. Yeah, I'll fade that up. It's pretty subtle, right? Because you'll be hearing it under the music, but it's gonna do what I want it to do. This is not as loud of a track as the rain, so we can bring it all the way up to full and we're good. So that will come in, and again, if I go back up and click on the group, I can now look at timeline, right? And I can adjust it so that morning sounds is kind of happening as rain is fading out, okay? And I can come back to morning sounds and I can zoom in on this timeline and do a better job of doing that a little bit more quickly, bringing that fade in a little bit more quickly. Great. Okay. Cool. So now that section is all built. So let's see if it works. I'm going to start here in this transition and I click over here to like set my playhead. Go, right? That music is playing. The rain just faded in. Now I'm pretending I'm in the beginning of the scene. So I hit go again and the song goes away and now the rain is ducking under dialogue and now I'm waiting in the rain. And now I'm going to hit transition 2 and it's going to just kind of bring in that song. The rain is gone now, right? The morning sounds are here, but I can't hear them. I'm really just waiting for the fade out that'll start this next scene. And this will target this whole transition, right? To, actually, no, I don't want it to target this whole transition. I want it to target just this cue, right? I want it to just take out the music, leave the morning sounds. So that's what I'm going to do, right? This also did cut out because it ended. And I'm going to have it not get quite so loud because that was a little much. And I can do that in this fade envelope. Like maybe don't be so extra music. And then my morning sounds will stay for the beginning of the piece. So I'm going to just clear these active cues and run that sequence again. So let's assume I have rain running and fade it to where I want it. And then we will hit transition 2, cue go. My music comes in, my rain drops out, the morning sounds are building, but I can't really hear them because I have this nice music. Oh, there's a little bird, great. And then they finish the scene change, cue go, and I'm left in this morning ambiance. I do want to hit that stop target when done, right? Because I can see that that's happening even though it's not playing out loud anymore. So now this is, what do we got? Q6. And I don't think I need to duck under my morning sounds, but if I did, I would just put those in a group and have another fade cue hit the morning sounds. Okay. But let's call this Q6. Okay, what happens now? Oh no, I missed something. There was a gunshot in that first scene during the rain that I missed. That's a hotkey trigger. Why don't we come back to that? We'll come back to that. Let's finish these sequenced cues. So a tea kettle comes next. So where's my tea kettle? Bring that guy in. Tea kettle is, what did I say? It's coming from off stage. So I do want to choose a tea kettle sound, right? And you'll notice this has several of them. We want this tea kettle to play infinitely, basically, until it is taken off, right? So to do that in time and loops, I'm going to just come a little bit inside and a little bit inside the end, okay? I'm going to put this on an infinite loop, and let's see what it sounds like. I'm going to hit this play button over here, tea kettle, tea kettle, tea kettle, and it's going to, I think, just loop now. Yeah, until my brain blows up. So that's going to be our tea kettle sound in an infinite loop. Charming, right? I bet you're ready to kill this kettle already. So that's going to happen, right? One of the things that you can do is place it in one ear or the other, right? By removing it over here in your left and right ears, right? So let's assume that the tea kettle is kind of over here. We wouldn't have nothing in this ear, but we would have less, right? And that'll position the sound on this side of my face, okay? So I'm going to just do one of these little subtle shift to kind of emphasize the sound on this side of my head. So that's my tea kettle, and it will now continue in this way until someone stops it by taking it off, okay? So with this selected, if I hit the fade button, now that fade is automatically targeting there. It is going to fade out to infinity. It is going to stop target when done. I think maybe 2 seconds is the amount of time it'll take to kind of settle, maybe even 1 second. So I can come in here, double click in action and make it a 1 second fade out. Let's see how that works. Yeah, that's all right. Maybe 1.5. This is the tweaky nonsense that I would do, right? So now this will be tea kettle stops, number 8. Boom. All right. This is all still happening over our morning sounds. So now we're at 9, which is intermission, where the intermission music comes up and the morning sounds fade out. So I'm going to, again, start a group, call it intermission, give it a cue number 9, and bring in those 2 intermission songs. There they are. Now they're in. I'm going to do the same thing I did with the pre-show music and have them auto follow, right? So second song will auto follow from first song. And this cue organization is fine. You'll want to listen and make sure that they're not wildly different volumes, but I'm not going to do that right now because I have things to do and people see. I just added a fade cue. I did it in the middle accidentally. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to retarget it. And then stop target when done, have the music go off, and that is cue 10, which is to fade out intermission music at the end of the sequence, okay? That's our basic cue list now, right? And you can see it over here in cue list. Here's all the stuff that happens, right? The one other thing that we had, right, was that cute little gunshot backup. Okay, and we wanted to use a hotkey trigger for that, which means that instead of the space bar, which advances cues sequentially, we'll use a specific key. I'm going to use G for gunshot on my keyboard to trigger that gunshot sound. It's not going to happen most of the time, but in an emergency, I have it as a backup sound, right? So to do that, I'm going to come over into cue lists, create a new cue list. I'm going to call it hotkeys. And then within that, I'm going to place my gunshot, which is G, over here, right? I'm going to look at this sound now, And where it has triggers listed, I just check this box and I type G. And now when I hit the G button, a gunshot goes off in my ears. I can be in the middle of a scene. I can be anywhere in my main cue list playing along, la la la, rain can be happening, whatever. If I hit G, the gunshot goes off, okay? So that is how you would use a hotkey trigger. Cool. This is it. To submit this project, here's what I'm going to have you do. So once you've built the whole show and it all works, yay, beautiful, all of your fades and overlaps and everything is magical, you need to bundle it in order to submit it, right? So if you were to just send me the little, if you were to just send me this Qlab file, I would not be able to open it because I do not have any of your audio files. I mean, I have them all, but they're not organized the way that you organize them. It's useless to me, okay? So in order to submit the project, I need you to actually do something called bundling the workspace, right? So we'll come back over here. You'll go to File. You'll go all the way down here to where it says Bundle Workspace, okay? And what that does is it creates a separate folder which has all of your content inside it as well as your show file, and this allows you to transfer a project from one computer to another, or in this case to submit a project via Canvas. So we're going to do one of these, savey, it's going to do this thing, right? It tells you where it is, you click OK, and we can go find it, right? So now this folder is the bundled workspace. It has an audio folder with all of the audio files that I used, and it has a copy of the Qlab show, right? Take this folder here, compress it, and then submit the zip file that has compressed itself. So right here, submit that zip file to Canvas for me, and I will be able to unzip it and play back your cues and check your programming and make sure that everything works the way it's supposed to. So that is our Qlab project. I know this was a long video, covered a lot of ground. Let me know if you have questions or if you get stuck, and hopefully it's helpful in orienting you to the software and giving you the basic lay of the land in terms of how we use this tool to both manipulate sound and structure playback. Thanks, friends. See you soon. Bye.